I'm so scared. I feel like I'm going to die. These were the final words Melanie Massay texted her mother, just 24 hours before she was gunned down in cold blood by 7 people she once called her friends. Let that sink in. 7 people. Not strangers. Not masked intruders. Friends. People she'd welcomed into her home. People she'd fed when they had nothing. People she trusted. Have you ever let someone into your life, only to realize too late that they were wearing a mask? What happens when the very people you call family become the architects of your death? For 21-year-old Melanie, that betrayal came wrapped in false smiles and friendly laughter. And on February 28, 2023, in Lakewood, Colorado, that betrayal turned deadly. In a single ambush, she lost her life and the lives of her unborn twins. The spark? A seemingly petty Facebook argument. But the fire it ignited was anything but small. This isn't just a murder story. It's a warning. Because the people you fear aren't always hiding in dark alleys. Sometimes, they're sitting at your dinner table. I fear no man, says Melanie's mother, Chitaka Brown. Because that's all they can do, shoot. Chitakano raises her granddaughter alone. Her daughter's life cut short by people who smiled in her face while plotting her end. This is the story of Melanie Massay and the cost of misplaced trust. Before we dive into the layers of this case, grab a coffee and get comfortable. And while you're here, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Have you ever been betrayed by someone close to you? We don't just tell crime stories, we uncover the truth behind them. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a case. Check out our full library of crime documentaries and playlists too. Now let's get into Melanie's story. Born on September 10, 2001, Melanie Massay was the third of 4 children raised by Chitaka Brown. From day one, Melanie stood out, not just because of her bright eyes or quick smile, but because of the warmth she radiated. She loved cereal, her mother says with a soft smile. And when she ate it, her lips would curl in this funny little way. It's these kinds of details, the small, quiet memories, that make Melanie's loss so devastating. Her laughter during sibling pillow fights, her stubborn but playful nature, her love for expensive things despite a humble background. Melanie was full of life and full of love. Her background was a blend of cultures, Creole, Afro-Indigenous, and Guyanese roots, a mosaic that made her all the more fascinating to those who knew her, like her best friend, Latch. Cute but bossy is how some described her. But her defining trait? Generosity. If you needed a place to stay, a hot meal, a shoulder to lean on, Melanie was that person. She gave without expecting in return, even when it came to people who one day would betray her in the worst way imaginable. Melanie wasn't just a kind soul, she was driven. Education was a priority. She attended Central High School, then transferred to New Legacy Charter School for teen parents. She was set to graduate on March 24, 2023, a ceremony she'd never lived to see. But she had dreams beyond school. At Hope Senior Living, she worked as a medical assistant, caring for elderly patients who couldn't care for themselves. This wasn't just a paycheck, it was a calling. She wanted to help, to heal, to make lives better. Her nursing certificate was more than a piece of paper. It was proof of her compassion in action. Guided by her faith, Melanie leaned heavily on the Holy Spirit. Her mother had raised her to believe, to feel deeply, to serve others. And Melanie took those teachings to heart. In 2021, Melanie stepped into a new chapter, motherhood. She gave birth to a daughter, Honesty Lorraine Diori. And that one moment changed everything. Motherhood gave Melanie new purpose, new meaning. She embraced it fully, creating joy-filled memories that now live only in photos and videos. Trips to water parks. Fireworks lighting up the night sky. That sparkle in Honesty's eyes during their visit to Disney on Ice. It was more than just a mother and daughter bond. It was a legacy being built. A legacy that would soon be shattered. Each day brought Melanie and her daughter closer. Every bedtime story, every hug, every shared laugh, it all deepened their bond. And by early 2023, that bond was set to grow again. Melanie was 4 months pregnant, with twins. She embraced this next chapter of motherhood with the same warmth and hope she gave to everything else. But just as life was blooming, the darkness began to stir. February 2023. The shift came fast. It started as a Facebook argument. Small, petty, digital. But it didn't stay that way. The disagreement snowballed. Angry posts turned to direct threats. The comments became more hostile. The tone changed. Words, once typed with emojis and slang, were now laced with venom. Her friends, the same people who had shared meals with her, laughed in her living room, slept under her roof, had turned. Melanie could feel it in her bones. And then, she sent a text to her mother that now haunts every corner of Chautauqua Brown's mind. "I'm so scared. I feel like I'm going to die." These weren't just nerves. They weren't the thoughts of a paranoid young woman. They were real. They were sharp. And they were right. It was a premonition. Because less than 24 hours later, her worst fear would come true. February 28, 2023. A Tuesday night in Lakewood, Colorado. The neighborhood was still. Zephyr Street, 1300 block. Just off Wadsworth in Florida. It looked like any other evening. Calm. Quiet. Familiar. But something sinister was unfolding beneath the surface. Melanie had just been dropped off at home. She walked toward her front door. No clue that a countdown had already begun. Then, gunshots. The night erupted with the crack of bullets. It was a trap. An ambush. Melanie was hit. One bullet struck the back of her head. Another hit her leg. But even in her final moments, Melanie fought back. Her mother believed she fired a single shot in return. A desperate, defiant act of survival. Melanie shot that one bullet, her mother would later recall. She tried. She really tried. But there were too many of them. Too many bullets. One of the shooters had 2 guns and just kept firing. "They just shot my daughter to death," her mother later said, her voice trembling. Melanie, 21 years old, for months pregnant, gunned down in front of her home. The twins she carried, gone before they even had a chance to live. It wasn't a drive-by. It wasn't random. It was personal. Brutal. Calculated. The sirens screamed. Police lights painted the dark street in flashing red and blue. Neighbors stepped out of their homes, drawn by the noise, unaware of the horror that had just unfolded. And then Chautauqua Brown arrived. She rushed to the scene, heart pounding, desperate to get to her daughter. But she couldn't. "I couldn't get to her," she whispered later. "But I saw everything." What she saw was a nightmare no mother should ever witness. They brought her out in a body bag. Just hours earlier, Melanie had been alive, laughing, carrying life within her. Now she was gone, and her mother had to identify her from behind a sheet. In the days that followed, grief blanketed Zephyr Street. Neighbors came, strangers came, and slowly, a makeshift memorial began to form. Pink hearts, Melanie's favorite color. Flowers, candles, balloons, messages scribbled on signs. But no matter how many petals covered the sidewalk, nothing could bring Melanie back. Nothing could return those unborn twins. And nothing could prepare the world for the hole she left behind. Honesty now motherless. A family shattered. A community stunned. "That street," one neighbor said, "will never feel the same again." It had become a symbol of betrayal. Of how easily love can be twisted. Of how friendships can become fatal. As detectives arrived and began collecting shell casings, witness statements, and security footage, one question echoed through the night. Why? Why would 7 people she once trusted, do this? What led them from angry comments to bullets in the dark? And just how long had they been planning it? The answers would come. Slowly. Painfully. But the truth would turn out to be even darker than anyone expected. How could 7 people coordinate to kill a pregnant woman they once called a friend? Who were these individuals? What could justify such a cold, calculated act of betrayal? The answers would take more than 2 years to fully come to light. And in that time, Chautauqua Brown, now a grieving mother and full-time grandmother, would wage a solitary war for justice. She raised little honesty with the crushing knowledge that her mother had been murdered by the very people she trusted. The blood-stained concrete on Zephyr Street demanded more than flowers and prayers. It demanded answers. And soon, those answers would begin to emerge, one horrifying layer at a time. The Lakewood Police Department launched an urgent and aggressive investigation. From the beginning, detectives were certain of one thing. This was no random shooting. This was an ambush, meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed. They went to work immediately, collecting witness statements, analyzing digital communications, tracking phone pings, pulling surveillance footage, scouring forensic clues. Slowly but steadily, a picture began to form. And then, the faces began to emerge. I fear no man. I don't fear their little pow-pows. All they can do is shoot. That's the defiant voice of Chautauqua Brown, standing tall at her daughter's memorial, speaking directly to the killers. Her voice didn't tremble. Her anger didn't waver. It burned, because she knew now who they were. In a press conference nearly a year after the ambush, Lakewood police revealed what they'd been holding close to the vest. 7 suspects, all facing first-degree murder charges. Monty Hayes, 23. Rayasia Hollins, 20. Trinity Walker, 18. Dejana Abrams, 25. Drayla Taylor, 22. Isaac Pieri. Jalea Burks. Each charged not only with Melanie's murder, but also with the deaths of her unborn twins. But it wasn't just the number that stunned the public. It was who they were. Because these weren't unknown gang members. They weren't masked strangers. They were friends. They were people Melanie had let into her life, into her home. One of them had even slept under her roof when they had nowhere else to go. Standing at her daughter's memorial, Chiaka Brown points to the sidewalk where bloodstains still linger. My daughter's body was right here. You can still see the blood drops. She clutches a photo, 3 generations smiling together, Chiaka, Melanie, and baby Honesty. She just loved for us to dress up alike, Chiaka says with a broken smile. Every visit to that memorial is a stab to the heart. But still she comes. And every time, she notices something new. Flowers, notes, balloons. I don't even know who's adding these things. But it tells me Melanie was loved. Loved but betrayed. And now Chiaka, a mother who doesn't seek attention, stands in front of cameras. Speaks to reporters. Fights for a legacy. I don't like publicity, she admits. But for my daughter, it's okay. It's okay to show my face. It's okay to let people know how I truly feel. Because silence won't bring justice. And silence won't bring change. 7 names. 7 charges. 1 unforgettable twist. One of them, Chiaka says, her voice breaking, was a childhood friend. My daughter used to hang out with her all the time. It was the final punch to the gut. These weren't just acquaintances. These were people Melanie laughed with, cried with, trusted. She let them into her circle. She shared food, memories, and her home. And in return, they orchestrated her execution. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about gang beef. It wasn't even about the Facebook fight, not really. It was something darker. A toxic mix of jealousy, betrayal, and unchecked violence. A mother's scream for justice. I fed these children. That's what Chiaka Brown said, her voice trembling not from fear, but fury. One of them was homeless, and my daughter took her in. She gave her a roof, food, trust, and all the while, they were plotting to ambush my pregnant daughter. By February 8, 2024, nearly a year after the murder, 5 of the 7 suspects were finally behind bars. Monty Hayes, 23. Rayasia Hollins, 20. Trinity Walker, 18. Dejana Abrams, 25. Drayla Taylor, 22. Each one charged with first-degree murder. They were being held in Jefferson County Jail, facing the weight of what they had done. Arrest warrants for all 7 had gone out just a month earlier, in January 2024. But 2 names still remained. Isaac Pieri, Jalea Burks. They were still out there, still breathing free air. Authorities warned the public to be cautious. These 2 were armed and dangerous. A $2,000 reward was issued for any tip that could bring them in. But behind the manhunt was a deeper question. Why? Why would 7 people conspire to kill a young woman pregnant with twins? The answer, as investigators would soon discover, began in the digital shadows, where arguments don't fade, they fester. A Facebook dispute was the catalyst. Harmless at first, just angry words on a screen. But those angry words evolved into threats. And those threats became a plan. Melanie had sensed something was off. She'd texted her mother the night before her death. I'm scared. I feel like I'm going to die. That wasn't paranoia. It was premonition. Just hours later, those threats leapt off the screen and into the real world. On February 28, 2023, on Zephyr Street. They just shot my daughter to death, Chiaka cried. One of them had 2 guns. My daughter tried to defend herself. She fired back, but they came to kill. And they did. Melanie was just 22 years old. She was shot in the head and the leg while carrying twins. And it happened in front of her home. My daughter's body was right here, Chiaka pointed to the sidewalk. You can still see the blood drops. Today, a memorial stands in that place. Flowers, balloons, and a pink heart, Melanie's favorite color. Chiaka visits often, carrying a small rose-shaped urn containing Melanie's ashes. I bring my baby's rose with me everywhere I go. And to every parent listening, she gives this warning. It's time to start interviewing people before you let them into your life. Into your home. Into your heart. The pursuit dragged on for over 2 grueling years. Then, finally, March 2024 brought a break. Jalea Burks, age 20, turned herself in. Whether it was guilt or pressure, no one knows. But she walked into a police station and surrendered. Now 6 were in custody, and just 1 remained. The final piece of the puzzle, Isaac Amir Pieri. And on March 4th, 2025, justice caught up to him. He was arrested in Aurora, Colorado, after a joint operation involving the Aurora Police, U.S. Marshals, ICE, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and the Department of Corrections. His bond? $1 million. His charges? First-degree murder. Attempted first-degree murder. With his arrest, all 7 suspects were finally in custody. Some of the defendants would go on to accept plea deals, cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for lighter sentences. Others chose to fight the charges. The Jefferson County District Attorney made one thing clear: no matter what, every single person involved would be held fully accountable. The legal process continues, with sentencing for some, and trials looming for others. But even if the system does its job, even if they're all locked away for life, there's no justice, Chiaka says, because justice would be my daughter still here. Justice would be her twins being born. Justice would be honesty getting to grow up with her mother. For Chiaka Brown, this fight isn't about vengeance. It's about dignity. It's about the value of Melanie's life and the unborn children she never got to meet. It's about making sure the world doesn't forget. Not just the murder, but the betrayal. You guys destroyed my family, Chiaka said, her eyes filled with tears. But you won't destroy her memory. If this story moved you, if it left you shaken or in tears, hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear Melanie's story. And most importantly, comment below. What do you think drives a betrayal this deep? How can we protect the ones we love in a world where even your friends might turn? Let's talk about it. Let's remember Melanie Amanda Massay. And let's say her name. Because justice isn't just about courtrooms. It's about never forgetting. As the months passed, Chiaka Brown didn't just wait for justice. She lived through it, one courtroom hearing at a time. One painful memory after another. One empty chair at her dinner table. She was now a mother without her daughter, and a grandmother raising a child too young to understand why her mother never came home. I don't want closure, she once said. I want peace. And maybe, just maybe, that peace would come once the last gavel fell. But long after the courtroom doors closed, Chiaka returned to Zephyr Street. The bloodstains were still there. The same street her daughter once walked now held her memory in silence. On March 24th, 2023, Melanie should have been walking across a graduation stage at New Legacy Charter School. Instead, there was a tribute. A seat left empty, a name read aloud, and a diploma, once meant for Melanie, was handed to her daughter, Honesty. She was just 2 years old. Chiaka stepped forward to accept the certificate on Honesty's behalf. It wasn't just paper. It was a promise kept. A goal Melanie had fought for, fulfilled in her absence. A message that said, your story doesn't end here. Since that day, Chiaka has become more than a grieving mother. She's become a voice. Before you let someone into your life, interview them. That's her message. Not out of paranoia, but experience. Because sometimes the biggest threats aren't strangers. They're the ones who already have a key to your house. They've already eaten your food. They've already earned your trust. Melanie's death began with an online argument. It ended in a real-world ambush. Her story is a warning. Take threats seriously, even if they come from people you know, especially when they come through digital channels. Melanie Amanda Massay wasn't just a victim. She was Creole, Afro-Indian, and Guyanese. Her heritage was rich, her identity vibrant. She worked as a medical assistant. She was a caregiver by nature, always putting others first. And more than anything, she was a mother. To little Honesty. And had she lived, to the twins she never got to hold. She was defined by her generosity, not her tragedy. How do you protect yourself from false friends? What red flags have you learned to watch for? Melanie's story doesn't just live on in headlines. It lives on in caution, in conversations, and in the people who hear her story and choose to be more aware. If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Hit the like button. Share it, so someone else might be warned before it's too late. Comment below with your own thoughts and experiences. Let's turn Melanie's memory into a movement. And if you want more true crime stories that dive deep into betrayal, justice, and the human heart, subscribe to the channel now and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. We're building a community. One story at a time. Melanie Amanda Massay was 21. She was kind. She was giving. She was pregnant. And she was betrayed by people she trusted. Her story should never be forgotten. And neither should the lessons it teaches us. If this story moved you, do something powerful right now. Click the like button. It helps more people hear Melanie's name. Share this video with someone who needs to hear her story. And most importantly, subscribe. This channel is where we uncover stories that matter. Stories of betrayal, justice, heartbreak, and survival. Hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a case that could open your eyes or maybe even save a life. Thank you for watching. And until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and never stop seeking the truth. Thanks for watching. And until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and remember Melanie Amanda Massay.